And at the end of the day, when you saw the first Trump administration. How do you now see the second administration?
I actually met President Trump twice. Once at General Assembly in 2019, and then the second time was here in Davos. We believe that his gained experience from the first term would be helpful for his second term. And the political climate has changed dramatically in the region and I would say worldwide. The team that he has identified, who are key people, key individuals, I would say they're up to the job, and we have personal relation, or let's say knowing them on personal level. So this would be easier, let's say, for us to find access.
There are two aspects, aren't there? There is the domestic and there's the international. The speed with which he has moved very much bears out what you just said, that it's not that he's learned the lessons, he's just learned how to pull the levers of power. He's come straight in and off the bat implemented policies, which is quite impressive at one level and quite worrying at another, because we don't know what's next.
True, but with rapid changes in the region, and I think there are times when people feel that the machine in the United States moves very slowly, and it goes in one direction, and then by the time it takes a left turn or right turn, it takes time. But I think the fact that he has moved so rapidly is an indication that this time he means business.
So if we take as for the region, and by that, what would you include in the region? As in your region?
Well, the Levant, the Middle East in entirety.
What role would you like to see the US play?
There are several key issues that the United States have been engaged from day one. Obviously, there's the Israeli-Palestinian issue that needs to be settled amicably, whatever that means. Second, Syria. Syria, again, the United States has been engaged, and particularly with the Kurdish issue, the Kurds of Syria. And third, Iraq itself, from day one, from 2003, to be more precisely, from 1991, after the first Gulf War, the United States has been deeply involved. Therefore, they need to finish the job. By that, I mean to make sure that stability, security returns to the region.
Getting that stability, and I've covered both 91 and 2002, so I've been around a while. Getting the stability in an inherently unstable area is not going to be easy. Where do you start? I'll give you an example. Everybody wants to have the leadership, but that fine line between leadership and imposition, which of course people have said in the past, that's the hard part, isn't it?
It is. It is not always easy to be leading. Sometimes maybe taking the back seat would be more comfortable. But since the United States has taken that lead, therefore there are many unfinished jobs. And that with the international partners, particularly war on ISIS, was a joint effort and it showed success. But still, the threat of ISIS, and particularly after the events unfolding in Syria recently, the threat of re-emerging ISIS, as we have seen, ISIS threats or ISIS attacks have increased.
So the new administration in Syria, it's almost like we've turned it on its head. Do you have confidence in that administration?
The rapid changes in Syria, I think it took everybody by surprise.
Did it take you by surprise?
I think even the current leaders in Damascus were taken by surprise. The level of the crumbling of the regime in matter of days, probably that was a big surprise to everybody. Currently, we're hearing right things, good things from the leaders in Damascus. Hopefully...
Define what for you means right things and good things.
Opening up to the world at large, basically, because we all know the backgrounds of this group. But currently, they have been very receptive to development, to coexistence, to more inclusive future for the Syrians.
Are they entitled to the benefit of the doubt? Now, there's a realpolitik here. They've got government. They won. They've got it. So, to a certain extent, you know, that old line, where does the £500 bear sit, wherever it wants to? They're there. Get used to it. There's nothing you can do about it. But I guess the question is the level of engagement that the West should, you know what I mean by the West, the Euro-Anglo, if you will, the level of engagement that should take place to promote further change versus holding in position again. Do you see what I'm saying? How much benefit should be given?
I think everybody is approaching these changes cautiously, but that doesn't mean they should take their hands off it. They should be engaged, but definitely Syria is an important country in the region, but it's not a rich country. It needs to be assisted, and that assistance can only come from international community, but it has to be in a well-defined, I don't like to say precondition, but certainly well-defined arrangement.
But of what? Sorry, I'm going to keep pushing you. You're the foreign minister.
No, for sure. I mean, the whole idea to bring back stability,
yes.
And obviously coming to the Kurds in Syria. The Kurds in Syria were denied any rights. Many of them were even denied citizenship. So there has to be efforts towards equal citizenship first and foremost, and rights of communities, be it the Alawites, be it the Durzis and the Kurds and Christians and Turkmens and everybody else.
All those communities, in some shape or form, suffered under the Assad regime, in some shape or form, over the last couple of decades. How does one bury the hatchet, as they say? I always think back to South Africa, post-apartheid. Or Mandela comes in, you have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was a model of its kind. Now, I'm not saying you do the same thing in Syria, but how do you allow the proper display, that you allow it to move forward, so that the rights of the wrong, so that the wrongs of the past are properly acknowledged, but it allows the community to move forward? That's the challenge.
It is a challenge for sure, because the country has been ruled by iron fist for decades, and to move away from that mentality in a day and night, that's going to be difficult for sure.
Particularly since the same people who were running the organizations, we learned this from when the Berlin Wall came down, the same people who were running it have to do both again, correct?
Indeed. We have similar problems in Iraq. We are still not over it, but at least we have taken the right path. So it will take some time. It will be a difficult ride. But as I said, it has to be properly defined, and the approach of our Western friends, through their assistance to rebuilding Syria in every way, economically and socially and politically, they have to be assisted and pushed in the direction that it will best serve the people of Syria as a whole. No ideas imposed, but certainly something that can be chosen by the Syrians themselves, for them to be given that opportunity to choose.
All right. How do you create a secure environment to allow that to happen? That's also massively significant.
Definitely. This will, again, it will take time, but I think it has already started.
Right.
It has already started, but if it goes in the same, let's say, momentum, probably at one point, I'm not talking about next week or next month, but perhaps in a near future, a transitional government can be elected somehow, and then obviously you need to have a new constitution which would identify and acknowledge the existence of all different communities, and the peaceful coexistence should be defined and underlined.
I want to talk about that from the Iraqi experience.
Right.
We all come along after these massive changes, and I sort of think we know that we can't have a Wilsonian, democracy in a sense of a bicameral, the Westminster, etc., etc. Do you think we sometimes try to impose democratic systems that are not conducive to that particular country or region?
I think system differs to values or principles. We may share same values and same principles, but maybe the same democracy might not be ideal because of cultural background. I mean, there are many other factors that contribute to building a society. But definitely certain values, certain principles, human rights, these should be upheld and should be encouraged.
Now let's talk about your own region and the investment opportunities there and the ability to grow the region. The one thing investors want, what's the one thing investors want? They want stability. Right. They want stability. Well, let's go through the list. Stability, certainty, rule of law.
Exactly, you said it.
Now tell me about your own region in that respect. The ability to provide those for investors.
I think we owe a lot to our own local investors. Some of them are represented here. They are the ones who have been supportive of government programs at a time when the government was facing difficulties, financial difficulties. They got the, let's say, the system going in infrastructure and the private sector. We have to also underline that the system in Iraq as a whole was more of a centralized state, socialist system. Everything was indexed to the state. The state was the mentor. The state was the big brother. The state was the provider. From cradle to grave, the state was responsible. We tried to move away from that, to encourage and to support and to develop a free market economy by encouraging entrepreneurship. And some of these fine people that you see here, they are all
Is this one of them?
Self-made millionaires.
Good to see you. Welcome.
So we owe a great deal to them. So the government has been a regulator. The government has tried to provide the basic needs of the population, but also allowing the private sector to continue the wheel moving and going. We are facing challenges. We are not an independent entity. We are part of Iraq. We have certain issues with Baghdad, sometimes with the region as a whole. Nevertheless, I believe we are doing relatively well. In the past, our war and our fight has been to survive. But now we want to survive and thrive.
Right, but is that relationship with Baghdad sufficiently defined, do you think? Or is it elegantly amorphous in a sense that it allows you that space that you see? You know, in doing my research, trying to understand the autonomous region, it sort of boggles the mind because on the one hand, it is federated, yes, but it's not a federal. It's not Scotland to the United Kingdom, but it's not. You see where I'm going with this? It's not the European Union. Sure. It's almost as if this construct has been put together that is deliciously ambiguous when it needs to be. Yeah. Would you agree?
I think what probably would define our relation with Baghdad, we have a constitution which was voted by 85% of the Iraqis in 2005, and this constitution was, the drafting of the constitution was helped with our friends from the West, United Nations, and I believe this is the best document that the entire region actually possesses.
Right.
We do have issues, and quite often we have been making it sure that, okay, if we have a problem, let's sit down and try to see what the Constitution says. Sadly, I'm sorry to say this because this would probably, it's not a bad mouthing of our colleagues in Baghdad, but sadly, there has been a kind of a objective and kind of an ad hoc selection of certain articles of the Constitution. Nevertheless, in 2005 until 2014, I would say, the relation between Erbil and Baghdad was very good. We still have good relation. We have ministers in the cabinet. We have parliamentarians on the federal parliament. But we do have issues. There are economical issues. There are financial issues, budgetary issues, energy issue, disputed territories. Article 140 of the Constitution requires within set period of time, the disputed territories should be settled through a mechanism mechanism. That was in 2007. We are in 2025 now. So we still believe we can sit down.
Can I ask you a blunt question?
Sure.
Do you believe the Constitution as it's currently framed, do you believe it's working?
This is why we are saying that we should be going back to the Constitution, because there are issues and there is a roadmap how to solve these issues. It cannot be through decision of an individual, or this prime minister is better than the other one, or the previous one was better than. It shouldn't be left to individuals how they behave. There is a law, there are laws, and there are constitution articles. Should be the mechanism to find solutions to our issues with Baghdad.
What to you, and I'm going to be wanting to hear from others. What to you is the biggest strength of the region, of Kurdistan region?
The biggest strength of our people is being their resilience, their determination. Through thick and thin, they've stood their grounds. In the past, our mountains were our only friends, but today we have many international friends, people like yourself sitting here with us, having in the Kurdish house in Davos, having Kurdish tea, and many other friends across the world.
Where is my Kurdish tea? Although I have to say, weak Englishman here, little bit of tea,
yes,
lot of hot water.
Right. So the resilience of our people, their determination to fight and to make it. When I say fight, yes, we did. Our brave Peshmergas fought for many, many decades, but today we believe the fight should be in a different way, through diplomatic channels, through economical growth, to make sure that the best standards of lives are provided to our people who have suffered miseries, calamities, atrocities, genocide, chemical attacks, and so on.
Oh, here we go. Lovely. Well done, sir. Thank you very much. How significant is the beauty of Davos is nothing's off limits.
Right.
Right? We agree? How significant and how much more do you think needs to be done in the area of transparency, corruption, cleaning up the business environment, the rule of law? How much more needs to be done? Because that is essential if you're going to join the league, if you will.
I totally agree. I think any developing society, there should be, there has to be a mechanism in order to make sure that corruption is down to zero.
That's not going to happen.
I was going to finish that. But at the same time, when it's not only financial corruption, but also there is administrative corruption, because the bureaucracy, the routine, the red tape sometimes is a killer. And it maybe makes people think twice to come and do business. This is why we have gone through a reform package by the government to diversify our economy and not to be oil-dependent economy. And the fact that we have tried to give a wider area of operation to our private sector is an indication that the government should stay out of business. It should not be a kind of a, let's say, former socialist system, state-owned enterprises.
Hang on. The government should stay out of business.
It should not be like the old socialist system of state-owned enterprises.
No, but it has to have a strong regulatory.
This is what I said. The government is a regulator and is not a business owner.
True, but what often happens, and I was in one country this morning, another country this afternoon, I'm here now.
We have investment law, which we believe is quite modern, providing incentives to local and international with tax-free, customs exemptions, 100% ownership, transfer of capital.
What do you want from government?
First, thank you.
What do you want from it?
Cheers.
You don't mind if you're a businessman?
Yes. My name is Zeshwan. I am the owner of Galyawa Group. We are working in industrial and real estates in different type of industrial. I want to answer your question. from our government, our regional, according of law, everything available in Ministry of Investment.
Yes.
What we want the government, our regional is working more with Baghdad, not the Baghdad not make more problem for our industrial in KRG. Like what? For example, we have some factory in Erbil, the capital of KRG. Same factory in another city, but he take some incentive from the Baghdad, but not giving for the KRG. That's big problem for us.
Some internal issues with Baghdad.
Thank you.
The relationship between the two. It's difficult.
By law and by constitution, I think things are well defined. But there are times when individuals can create problem. As this gentleman mentioned, yes, certain products produced in Kurdistan either are not being permitted to go to south of Iraq, or sometimes, I'm sorry to say this, but through special arrangements, they can go. It shouldn't be like that, because Kurdistan is part of Iraq. You cannot levy second tax or customs as you leave Kurdistan entering Iraq proper.
What I find fascinating about what you've just said, sir, and what you've responded, is that that you're both talking about the reality of it, not what it says on paper. You're both describing the challenge of actually living it. Would you agree?
True.
And that is, so I want to, as we come to the end here, I just want to know, what is it? People like yourself have been vested with the power and the authority and the influence. What is it you'd like to do in the next 12 months?
Probably reduce some of those power and influence.
Nah, power once given is rarely ceded.
Well, there will be a new cabinet, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the cabinet. So that
would you like to be?
That will automatically fade away.
No. So to my credit, I assume, since you're excellent knowledge of me, I assume you're familiar with Yes Minister.
Absolutely, and yes, Prime Minister.
Yes, Prime Minister. So when I ask you, do you want to be in the cabinet? I have no ambitions, but I'll be ready to serve if required.
Well, you answered for me. I've been in this political life since late 80s, so it's quite some time. But to be honest, I mean, jokes apart, I mean, definitely, I think the government has tried and will be continuing, because, to be honest, for us it's been trial and error. I mean, in 1991, when we took over the last swath of the territory of Kurdistan region, we had our first election in 1992. And we have been learning, despite the challenges, despite living in the shark-infested waters. We are making mistakes for sure, but we are trying to learn from our mistakes. And being here in Davos, when we meet people and we're trying to build bridges with different countries, different cultures, different economies, different states, we're trying to learn from their experience. So I'm not saying that we are a perfect example of democracy or, let's say, administration. We have our faults, but at least we admit to it. We try to make it better, and we're trying to learn from the examples, successful examples of other friends. And governments, as I said, as a regulator, is trying to move away and let the business people do their business and attract foreign investment into the region.
Will you invite me?
You have an open invitation.
Next time in Erbil. Thank you very much. Gentlemen.